if you pay attention to the coverage of Panthers training camp, as I'm sure many of you do, there have been some very drastic improvements made by some players. Some players who have maybe been the object of ridicule by Panthers fans the last 2 or 3 years. Is that a good thing? Because you got to worry about why somebody looks like they're having a breakout in training camp. If I would have told you last year, or like especially early this offseason, that the list of great performers at training camp or breakout performers at training camp would include Jonathon, Mingo, Terrace Marshall Jr., and Miles Sanders, what would your reaction be? Because if you go back to last year, and we have the receipts, right? We have the YouTube comments, we have the Twitter replies of how the fan base was not super stoked that Jonathon Mingo wasn't performing, or was not super stoked with the way Miles Sanders wasn't living up to his free agency contract. And Terrace Marshall Jr. has been the object of some stink eyes for quite some time in Carolina, especially because it seems like every one of his college teammates has gone on to become an NFL star. Which actually, by the way, Kayvon Chason was probably one of his college teammates, so maybe they just need to get back together in the same locker room. Here's why I'm asking this question of, like, should you be excited or worried that those three guys keep being mentioned as making big plays, as sparking the offense in training camp? Did Jonathon Mingo or Terrace Marshall, Jonathon Mingo for 1 year, Terrace Marshall for 3, show you much in the NFL? We haven't gotten a big, wide array of flashes of greatness from them, right?
I know a couple of years ago, Terrace Marshall Jr. was actually one of the higher rated on deep balls in the NFL.
All
so,
right.
but that was also like the Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold year, Matt Rule stink.
Yeah. You get real specific with some stats, they might.
But
pop
like specifically on deep balls, he was actually one of the higher rated ones.
Bryce, actually, I'll read some tweets here just to kind of build up that, because there are some that really enjoy them. Mike K, Charlotte Observer, beat reporter, covers the Panthers. These are 2 tweets that he tweeted out today. Bryce Young rolls out to the right and throws on the run to a streaking Terrace Marshall in the end zone for a pretty impressive touchdown in red zone 11-on-11. Would say Marshall has the win back because he had got the wind knocked out of him earlier on. Another tweet from Mike K. Jonathon Mingo looks like a completely different player from an outside route running perspective this summer. Made a nice double move for a touchdown in one-on-one on red zone. There's just a lot of that going on. There's a lot of, hey, great play by Mingo. Hey, great play by Marshall. Hey, big catch made. Hey, great route run. There's 2 ways this ends up happening. One way is they've both taken massive steps. They've developed their game. The new coaches, whatever messages they're preaching, are landing home, and these 2 players are much better than they were last year. The other would be the defense is playing a quality of defense that is allowing them to have success despite the fact that they're players that haven't had success in the NFL level. Which do you think it is? Right?
We'll go with the former.
You hope so.
I mean, they're second-round picks for a reason. Like you
definitely.
They're second-round picks for a reason. Like, to me, it's like, okay, this is what you should naturally be progressing from. This case, Jonathon Mingo from year 1 to year 2, or Terrace Marshall finally showing something in year 4.
That's the hard part for me. If it was just Mingo, then it makes a lot of sense. Sophomore jump, right? Last year was overwhelmed. All of the excuses we give to Bryce Young, we should give to Jonathon Mingo. So if he's suddenly playing much better, that makes sense. It's the Terrace Marshall that's making me have a hard time. Usually by 3 years in the NFL, you know what a player is. So the fact that he's also making more plays almost makes me question the Mingo plays. Well, if Terrace Marshall can do it, then... Right? I think about it like this. If I'm losing a race to someone that I've known to be slow for the last 3 years, it's probably smart to explore all options and possibilities before assuming that the person I've known to be slow for the last 3 years has suddenly become very fast. And one of those options I should investigate is if I've gotten much slower. Right? So if Terrace Marshall hasn't been a super effective wide receiver for 3 years, now suddenly he's a playmaker. Before I assume, hey, that guy's just made a massive jump, I should look into the defense that is stopping him or not stopping him and make sure that isn't the reason why he's making the plays. Same might be said for Miles Sanders being a breakout. Miles Sanders, by all accounts, has been one of the most intense, hard-running, physical running backs in camp. Maybe the most intense, hard-running, physical running back in camp. I've watched a lot of Miles Sanders. I don't recall him ever being a tank. Been big playback. I've seen him rip off 40-plus yard runs. I've seen him catch out of the backfield. I'm not saying he hasn't been effective. I'm saying never been top 15 in the league in broken tackles. Very rarely in the top 15 in any broken tackle metric, right? Broken tackles per carry, broken like that, those sorts of things. Very few running backs suddenly become like a bully physical running back after a bunch of injuries at age 27. Is the defense not being physical enough? This is the gift and the curse of training camp, right? And I've said it a few times throughout the week, or throughout the last week and a half, whatever it's been. Every time the offense makes a play, the defensive coordinator's mad. Every time the defense makes a play, the offensive coordinator's mad, right? There's everything is a give and a take, unless it is a situation like I've seen it and heard it has been with J.C. Horn and Deontay Johnson, where it does feel like every time they match up, it's just high-quality football.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes Deontay Johnson wins. Sometimes J.C. Horn wins. Like, if it's that style, love it. But you also have to ask the reverse questions, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if J.C. Horn is sometimes beating Deontay Johnson is sometimes beating J.C. Horn, it's nice to know that they're both really good players because they have been really good players for the past however long, right? You're not worried about Deontay Johnson losing some of those reps because you're like, no, J.C. Horn, he beats number one wide receiver sometimes. Like, he's that good. Now, if J.C. Horn were suddenly getting beat by Terrace Marshall Jr., I probably wouldn't expect Terrace Marshall Jr. Oh, he's a number one wide receiver. You know, he does that quite a bit.
It's okay if he gets you once, okay.
Yes,
you got him once.
But if it becomes that back and forth, I'd be more worried about J.C. Horn than I would be Terrace Marshall Jr. being better.
I think it's also, we talked about reasons versus excuses for Bryce Young. Mm-hmm. So you look at Terrace Marshall Jr. When he got drafted in 2021, Matt Rule's the head coach, and that's when they tried to go with Sam Darnold. Things didn't quite work out overall with that situation. Then his next year, Rule gets fired. There's Baker Mayfield. Then there's Sam Darnold. There's P.J. Walker. Who else played at quarterback? And then last year was the Frank Reich situation, which we all know was a complete and total disaster. And then so maybe he's just in the right circumstance. Like sometimes that's just a simple reality.
100% a possibility.
So yeah, I mean for me, it's again, he was a second-round pick for a reason. Maybe he's finally in a situation where he can be up to his potential.
If Terrace Marshall Jr. suddenly this year plays like what many thought his potential was coming out of college, then
awesome.
Watch the heck out. Then all of a sudden you start looking at and if Mingo does the same,
5 wide, let's go.
I mean that suddenly Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen becomes a mentor. Then it's suddenly Adam Thielen is out there just passing on words of wisdom and playing 20 snaps a game because the physical ability of those two other guys is just going to trump that. That is one of the things that I will be ecstatic that, I can't believe I had questioned it back in training camp. Like, oh, what a fool am I. I will love it. But until it's one of those I'll believe it when I see it style things.
If they disappear on game day, then it's like, okay, then
I'm worried about the defense. Cool. Then I'm worried about the defense. And I'm going, these were the guys that were crushing the defense? Uh-oh.
Well, we had questioned about the defensive backs going into this season anyway.
Quite a bit of
that we did.